Sauce.
Hey, you like Pez?
It looks like that. Here's Heaney from the boundary line. He's an expert at these. From the boundary line!
Hello and welcome to Behind the Boundary podcast. I'm your host Pez, I'm here with Sauce, and you're here for the On The Full pod where we talk about all the news from round one, and we have our new segment End to End where we preview all the games for round two and pick a line as well. Welcome Sauce.
Thanks, Pez. What a round one it was. Not only did it have some exciting games, some really exciting finishes, some big comebacks, some big blowouts, some teams overachieving from what all the experts, and I use the inverted commas there, had predicted for their season 2021. Most of the action, though, has been off the field this week, and lots of things have come up in scrutiny this week, like all round ones. But for memory, this has been one that... it's very memorable, and it's a lot of things have been questioned, and I think the quick start and the quick rule changes and the clarification of rules really brought it ahead. So excuse the pun there, Pez.
Mate, a hell of a lot of things have come up from round one, and I'm sure we'll get into it in our next segment. But if you haven't already, follow us at Behind the Bound on Twitter, Facebook and Instagram, and listen to our round recap show, which we posted out on Monday night, where we do everything in depth. So this is our segment for today, Sauce.
Hawkins got a little under it. Out the back, Dangerfield got Kelly over the top. Runs into the open goal. You've got to be kidding, because there's no doubt. More of the ball over the line.
Here we go. One of our favourites here at Behind the Bound Sauce. Been doing it since the start. And over-under for the new fans or the new listeners out there, just a little bit. We just give a fake line out there for the news stories of the week and try and... have a little fun and see if we can go against each other in these lines that we make up.
We definitely make up. So we take real stories, we give it an imaginary line, and we have to choose whether we think it's going to be over the imaginary line or under, obviously, as the name indicates. Let's get straight into things with probably the biggest story of the week, and it has taken since Saturday night really to come into fruition. Very simple, this one, Pez. We've had Patrick Dangerfield, who was reported and he found guilty for 3 weeks, described the trial like a murder trial. So probably not a great analogy that he's used there. But he went in with a defence that he was trying to protect himself and he didn't know what to do, but not successful. The AFL has really come down on what they're trying to do and protect with the uncertainty, I guess, around head injuries and the effects after football. So my question to you, Pez, how many players in this round, and we'll stick to round number 2 because that's what we're focusing on later on in the show, over under, players that will pull up short this round. Now, let's say that this probably happens once a game that we have one of these situations, so I'm just going to make it very simple for you, Pez. Over under, 9.5.
So how many players pull up short? So you're meaning they're there, they're about to have contact, and instead of actually going the bump, that player's got rid of the ball, they're going to actually dodge them and go around them or move backwards or... That's not what you're taught as a footballer, is it? It looks so unnatural on the ground. I've noticed a few players don't like contact and they don't like going in for the footy. But how many players are going to actually pull up short? I've heard some of the coaches this week, Sauce, actually come out and say we're teaching our players to bump first and tackle first, and bump second. And I've been thinking, I've heard that before. I've heard that nearly every year. We've had commentators and experts coming out and saying the bump is dead. Well, I've heard that for the last 5 years as well. So I'm going to say, who's going to pull up short? I'm going to say only 5.
5. So you're going under?
Under.
I think it's going to be over, Pez. I think it is the death of the bump. I'm going up close to 18. 2 a game. With the uncertainty of the wording of the rule and players electing to bump, they don't know what to do. They can't jeopardise their games, even though if they are going to be the sub, they can get a game gifted to them. They're worrying about their careers. They're worrying about the longevity of their career. And it really affects you getting a regular run into a side. If you're continually known as a player who chooses to bump. You look at Long from St Kilda, who every time he gets up anywhere near it, he gets rubbed
weeks,
out.
Yeah.
It's just players need to adjust, and unfortunately, as much as I love the bump and I love watching Byron Pickett highlights the big bumps,
Clean
mate.
up.
I think it's an adjustment of football, and whether it's better for the game in terms of the longevity after, and the long, I guess, for the career after football and the effects of that. I think it's just really going to make the game a little bit less 360 contact and one of the most brutal sports that we have in the world.
Yeah, I think the AFL are doing this to protect themselves later on from lawsuits and things like that. And you've got to protect the head first, you do. And Dangerfield's contact was rated as severe, even though it was a head clash. So that's the thing. If you choose to bump, you're risking going out for your side, and he's going to miss the 3 weeks, and there's nothing anyone can do about that now. But I've gone under. You've gone over for the first one, Sauce.
We're always
very
head
good.
to head there.
Always head to head with a lot of things. Don't agree on much, so I don't know why we do a podcast together. But we'll go into the next big story of the week. Now, Brody Grundy has been an amazing ruckman for Collingwood. He emerged a few years back, got a big $7 million 7-year deal, and Collingwood fans were ecstatic. We've got the best ruckman in the competition. He was competing with Max Gawn. He was doing all these things. So before I give you my over-under Sauce, I'm going to give you a little bit of background. In 2018, Brody Grundy polled 17 Brownlow votes. In 2019, he polled 23 Brownlow votes as a ruckman.
Ridiculous.
And finished equal 6th in the Brownlow. In 2020, he had a down year, only polled 6 votes. So my over-under, after Brody Grundy's rough start, should we say, against the Bulldogs and getting Stephen Martin being able to compete with him, and the last 3 times he's played the Bulldogs, he actually got best on ground 3 times against Tim English. So my over-under is, how many Brownlow votes is Brody Grundy going to receive in 2021? When we go to the Brownlow count, whatever he gets, the over-under that I'm going to give you is 9.5. So that means he needs 3 best on grounds to get 9. And then he needs to poll in another one as well. So you got to think of, are Collingwood, how many other games are they going to win? How many games is he going to dominate as a ruckman, or is he past it?
2019, he got how many votes?
23.
And in 2020?
6.
That's such a big drop off. Well, you look at back in 2019 when he was averaging over 30, 40 hitouts a game, as well as well over 20 disposals a game. 2020 he only hit over 20 twice, and that obviously had 6 votes. The decline, I can't see him working out how to get the pill. He's going to be playing more of an intercept sort of role out the back. I'm going well under. We talked about the death of the bump, mate. Ruckman getting votes. That was a really short-lived history. It was a 1-year thing, not happening ever again. Whilst he is talented, I think clubs have worked out how to stop him and being a bit more prepared for him to actually follow up his own football. They prepared for it. They planned for it. Very evident in 2019, especially with that depleted midfield in there. In Collingwood, we spoke about the exit of a lot of those players earlier in the week. I think for me, well under. I'm going maybe 3. He might have 1 best on ground.
Oh, so I could have gone real low. I could have gone 5.5, and you would have.
I still would have gone under.
Yeah, I'm actually in agreement with you. I'm going under here.
Hey,
because,
you're in agreement,
mate. I don't think Collingwood, as you saw from our letter prediction shows, I don't think they're going to finish that high, Sauce. So struggled against the Bulldogs. They only lost by 16 in the end, but got dominated. Their backline can stand up, but I just don't see where their goals can consistently come from. And that midfield's just slowing down with the loss of people. So I don't think they're going to even win enough games for Brody Grundy to poll best on ground in, say, 3 or 4 games and get over that 9.5. So Grundy's mega deal, was it worth it? At the time, everyone was wrapped with it, and now everyone's going, oh, what are we doing here? So it's up to the club, because the club took the risk on him. They did his 7-year deal, and he's getting his money. But is it going to be not worth it in the end, because they didn't get anything out of it, really?
No, most definitely right. They didn't get anything for it. And just a question without notice, Pez, not a question, a prediction. The thing that we're going to be talking about next week is not Grundy. It's going to be exactly what you mentioned there about Collingwood's forward line, because they are going to get pantsed by Carlton tomorrow night.
Oh,
and they're not going to. The question is going to be not with Grundy. It's going to be where are their goals coming from, because we're going to see a big score, I think, tomorrow night, and they're not going to be able to compete. Anyway, let's get on to one of the sadder stories from round 1, and unfortunately a continuation from 2020. We had one of the young hopefuls, an absolute superstar in the making. Well, maybe. This is where the question is, Pez. Matt Rowell went down with a terrible injury. Everyone sort of was really upset, and you could see through Twitter, so many multis got done because they had him for 20 disposals there. I had him for my personal for a sneaky goal, but not to be. Number 1 picks generally get a lot of games. They have a longevity in AFL. They sort of move around the clubs. They well and truly get over 3 or 4 years in football. We don't really have a comparison in AFL, but if you compare it to sort of NBA players, you know, you look at some of those careers that were cut short through injuries. You know, Greg Oden comes to mind. You look at Yao Ming, who comes to mind. He had a bit of a longer one, but those players, those number one picks that get brought down from injury. My question to you is, Pez, how many games are we going to be seeing from Matt Rowell? And I think I think after the first 3 games that he played last year and he was on 9 votes, you probably tout him as probably being a 300-game player.
Yeah, easy.
He's played, 6 games? And, well, he's played, I guess realistically, he's played 4 games because 2 games of those he didn't actually...
In the first quarter.
Didn't actually, finish out. You look at his junior career and look at when he was playing with the Oakley Chargers. They run an 18-game season and his games were not that much chop either. So he seems like he carries a bit of injuries through that as well. He had 4 games in his first year, 11 in his next, 7 in his next. So I guess I'm just going to go straight out, Pez. We'll just put him as he's an elite footballer. He's someone that we had touted as a future Brownlow medalist. I'll make it easy for you. Over under 100 games.
Oh, I knew the 100 was coming out. You know, it will be devastating to football if Matty Rowell does not play 100 games and we don't see him running around there. I'd really love to see him get up to 200 games. I know he's going to miss, up to 12 weeks here, so it's most of this season. He missed most of last season. But he's got the heart. We've seen him on the Amazon Prime documentary. He works hard and he's going to continue to do that. And we just need to hope that his body can hold up because AFL fans will be missing out on an absolute beauty. And what we love to see in our game is absolute superstars. And Matty Rowell can be one, but he just needs his body to hold up. So I'm going to say over 100 by a shitload.
Over 100 by a shitload. I mean, he's 19-year-old. He's had a pretty devastating season-ending career.
It's just hope, mate. It's just hope.
Season-ending with the shoulder. And now his leg's playing up. He's got the PLC, and it's only a minor tear to the crucial ligament down there, but still, that's your shoulders, which are really important carrying a football team like the Gold Coast Suns, your legs. I'm gonna be the bearer of bad news,
Devil's
Pez.
advocate.
I think that he actually will play under. I think, unfortunately, looking at some of his injuries going, from the past and what Gold Coast need him to be, I think he's gonna fall short. I think he's just gonna fall short. I think he's been one of those players probably gets to about 80 or 90 games, play for a long time in the system.
Upsetting me already.
I am upsetting him, but that's not. Maybe I'm just playing devil's advocate for this podcast, but I think the positive signs for Gold Coast supporters and AFL lovers is that, Stuart Juice came out and said he never met a person that loves football as much as him. And he's been around a fair few football clubs. He's been around football. That's the promising sign. He's a professional athlete. He already came in with a really big body anyway. Looks like he works hard. You can see him on the sidelines with his notebook. Showed some positive signs in getting out there on the huddle, 3/4 time, hobbling out there on the crutches. So I'm going to go under to play devil's advocate. But I really, really hope I'm wrong, and I hope that it goes way over. And I hope that you're talking about this next year about a third-year player winning a Brownlow after 6 games of a career, because he's an absolute superstar, and you don't want to see anyone get injured and their career cut short. But best of luck to Matty Rowell.
Yeah, you don't want to see that at all, mate. But is it possibly they could think of a different position for him if he's going to keep getting injured in the middle? Play him off a halfback flank where there's not a lot of contact and things like that.
Yeah, I mean, just tell him to. He just plays in the midfield and just get everyone to bump. We should be fine.
Oh, well, if the bump's dead, maybe it's a little bit better for him.
Maybe it should have come 1 week earlier, so then he would have been fine, even though he was tackled and rolled over the top of it. But
that's it, mate. Yeah. And that concludes Over Under for this week, and now our little segment to show the news in a different way. We get to go into my new favourite, definitely my new favourite source. I know we always say that, but this is definitely my new favourite little intro and actual segment, because I love talking about the footy and I love choosing the lines, what we're doing this year. So this is End to End.
Fremantle from one end to the other. Now it gets really interesting.
We love a good intro at the pod, Pez. We love it. We're all over it, and that's the one thing other shows don't have that have maybe stolen our segments, Pez. They don't have great intros. They just
got the bow and arrow out.
Got the bow and arrow, and that's about it. Carrow's arrow, not that good.
Oh, you're stealing segments now.
All right, let's start things off with the first game, the Thursday night. Jeez, I love Thursday night football because it's now Wednesday. The weekend's
It's
already
already the
started.
weekend,
The
mate.
weekend's already started. So we got the 7:20 time slot. That's why we're recording on the Wednesday tonight, Pez. MCG, this should be an absolute cracker. I know that the government is not bringing in their 75% of capacity until Friday, but Carlton and Collingwood will be absolutely kicking themselves. But it will sound like there's going to be 75,000 in there because Carlton and Collingwood supporters, they love their footy. We've got their first game going up there, Pez. What is the line for that game?
Well, the line, Collingwood -1.5. So Collingwood started out as favourites early in the week and they've stayed it the whole time. They've stayed true. The -1.5, that's one of the closest lines probably between these two sides in a few years, Sauce. There's been a few ins and outs, and I find it very interesting because Carlton have named Jack Martin and Zach Williams in, and Zach Williams will make his debut for Carlton. Lockie O'Brien omitted. He did struggle last Thursday night in the season opener, and Jack Silvani, who went out as a medical sub with that injury. Collingwood bring in Callum Brown and Steele Sidebottom. Oliver Henry and Trey Rusco omitted, who were not liked on Twitter by Collingwood fans last week, I can tell you that much. But the interesting thing, the medical sub came on, Oscar McDonald last week, dominated, kicked 2 goals, and I thought he'd be a walk-up start to the 22. Not named as an emergency. Is he going to be the medical sub again?
Bit disappointing for him. I mean, he comes on, kicks a couple of goals in not many minutes.
Anytime the ball went near him, mate, he won it.
Yeah, kept his team in the game a little bit when they sort of they looked like they were going to get blown out of the water in that third quarter. But really disappointing for him. But maybe that's something that he was excited by, and maybe he wants to be the new sixth man of the year. There you go, Pez. There we go.
Oh, sixth man of the year.
Well, it's
not
that 23rd,
23rd
best man, 23rd man of the year. This game's really interesting. It's touted as a big blockbuster because you're seeing the rise of Carlton. I think last week they were really competitive for most of that game, despite Richmond's inaccuracy and them really pumping the ball inside that forward line. But Collingwood were also really disappointed. They got absolutely towed up in that middle through the speed and the overuse of the handballs that the Western Bulldogs do, and that we'll see lots and we'll talk lots about this year. But I think Carlton can get the job done, and as I already said to you, Pez, and I alluded to, I think they can do it pretty easily. I think the inclusions of Jack Martin and Williams coming in, he's going to be out there to prove something through that midfield. That's where he wants to be. I don't know if he has the tank for it, but really interested to see that inclusion. I think that they've got a strong back line for a side that really isn't going to kick too many goals in Collingwood, and I think that the strength from last week from Collingwood was their back line. Darcy Moore, intercept mark, absolute king, but Carlton have a lot of pings from outside 50. They have a lot of those smaller players, and they don't really have a traditional lead-up forward that is reliable outside of outside of McDonald. So I'm going with Carlton at a minus, what is it, +1.5?
Yeah, the +1.5 there. So you'll take that. Now, I'm tossing and turning on this game, Sauce. It's nearly a flip of the coin one for me with this line because the Pick'ems, I hate the Pick'ems, because Steele Sidebottom is a big in for me. And Collingwood's defence is really strong. The thing that they're going to struggle with is kicking goals with Mason Cox and Brody Myercheck as your 2 forwards up there. I think Jordan De Goey needs to play out of the goal square for a majority of the game, so they've got some scoring option, but I know they want him to be in the midfield as well. Maybe with Sidebottom coming in, De Goey can play up forward a little bit more. You look at the bottom six on both sides, I'd probably say Carlton have the worse bottom 6 than the others if you've got Jack Nunes in that 22. But Silvani did exit. Paddy Cripps is in there. Zach Williams, we get to see how he is. Look at this midfield. Cripps, Walsh, Williams. If Pitnet can compete with Grundy, which by Grundy's form in the past 2 seasons, he should be able to do that. So I'm actually going to back Carlton as well, Sauce, and I'm going to go the +1.5, and I think they can get a win. Not as easy as you, I think. I think it'll be a tight contested game, and they'll win by about 12 points.
12 points. All right, so we're both with Carlton. That's an unusual job for us there, Pez, but it makes me feel a lot more confident that I've picked well by the way you make fun of my tipping. All right, we get on to the Friday night game down at the Cattery, 7:20 start to make sure all those Melbourne supporters can get back home nice and early. We've got the Geelong Cats, Brisbane Lions, both teams in real struggle of starting the season 0-2, both touted as premiership contenders. Pez, what do you see happening in this one?
Yeah, one team goes 0-2. Just a quick note, you finish work tomorrow, you're travelling down the freeway,
of course, mate. I'm going. Well, I've got some after work drinks, and then I'm going to, after the RSL, I'm going to head down to pick up Mum on the way through and go down there and get a nice little spot down at the Cattery, mate. I'm in the new stand, very excited. So they've
Excellent.
with the with the new seats, the new ticket system, I guess you have to bid for whatever. And even though I've paid for a seat, I don't get my seat, but it's actually worked out pretty good. So
there you go. Make sure you take some snaps for us on Twitter at Behind the Bound, Instagram. Jump on this line 8.5. Now Geelong, they haven't had Cameron yet, but they were missing him last week because they did have one player, and I didn't do my due diligence last week because Josh Jenkins played for Geelong. And you know how much I dislike Josh Jenkins as an AFL footballer, and didn't he spray the ball over at Adelaide Oval at his old town? And if Cameron's out again, I'm tipping that Scott's going to continue with Josh Jenkins. I don't like him in the side. Dangerfield's out, so that's a big out. Is Meningola going to make it back?
You'd say Meningola most likely went out. He went out with that shoulder, and probably Mitchell Duncan's not going to get up as well. They'll probably play it cautious there. So those three are big outs, but predicted to be picked. You got Zach Tui and Jack Henry coming back into that defense. Number one defense last year in the AFL, and they really struggled with Tex Walker last week. So hopefully there's some big inclusions to deal with that really vicious Brisbane forward line. Didn't fire last week, but the potential.
Didn't fire, and Sydney got over the top of them. So Brisbane will be fired up. I think it's going to be very hard to win at the category. The category. Yeah, very hard to win that category of the line at plus 8.5. But Brisbane Lions, I've tipped them for the top of my ladder, and I'm going to have to back them here. Plus 8.5. I'm going to see if they can get within that down at Geelong. Geelong early in the season, they're good at GMHBA, but sometimes they lose that one. A couple of years ago, I remember we went down there. They lost to GWS when Callum Moore did his knee. So I'm backing the Lions here, Sauce.
Yeah, I think it's a really interesting line, that one. So you're going with the the plus 8.5.
Plus 8.5.
Yeah, that means that we can still get the job done pretty easily. And you'll be a loser there, Pez, because you're right. There's two things that Geelong don't do. They don't lose back-to-back games that often, and they don't lose at the Cattery very often. And they're two big factors, and I can't remember the last time Geelong would have started 0-2. And they'll be extremely disappointed, especially losing against Adelaide. I mean, Brisbane will be upset, obviously lost at home against an up-and-coming Sydney, but Adelaide last year could barely put together a game, and the deficiencies that Adelaide really exploited, that run through the middle, that run off that half-back line, those a couple of inclusions will really help sort of fix that. And I'm going Geelong minus 8.5 Pairs. I think that they can get the job done, break it open into that last quarter. It'll be a very competitive game, and I'm really looking forward to it.
Oh, two teams coming off a loss that are meant to be top four and compete for a premiership. They're coming all at it, and the effort will be huge in that one. Head to the first game on Saturday, Sauce.
Yeah, we head to the SCG, and speaking of two teams who are up and about, probably predicted this to be the bottom of the ladder battle, but it's actually the top of the ladder battle with Sydney Swans taking on the Adelaide Crows. The line is 20.5 Pairs. What's going to happen here?
Oh, mate, if whatever happened last week, these are the two games that I could not pick last week. Adelaide beating Geelong by 12 points, and then Sydney flogging Brisbane by about 31 points. So the line is out to 20.5, which is interesting because on Sunday night saw it at minus 9.5, and a few posts were going around on Twitter saying, jump on, this is good value. Buddy, possibly back. Mm-hmm. He's got Isaac Heaney. That forward line's looking pretty good. I know it's just one game. You've got to, round one, you can't look into everything. You've got to rate the teams where you had them. I loved Adelaide's intensity and their effort. I spoke about that on our recap show. I just think that you have to go with the home side here. 20.5's big, but I just think Sydney with the momentum and Adelaide off that win, travel over, young side, it's going to be too much for them, and Sydney can win by 4 goals plus. So I'm going to have to go Sydney here.
Yeah, one thing that we saw last week in the games, we just spoke about Adelaide's intensity and they'll really run off that back line. One thing that we saw in Sydney's game is they have the potential to score. They had 4 players hit over 2 goals. 3 players hit 3. They in the waffle they had Logan McDonald. He kicked a nice little bag there as well. He might get the call up. And you add one of the modern-day greats into that side as well. They're going to get up for him. That ball is going to be coming in fast and hard, and I think the Swans can get it done here. That line, though, is a big line at 20.5, and that's where, are we going to see the Adelaide from last week, the competitive, the hard, the hard tackling, the running off the back line, the bombing it long? I don't think Tex Walker can play those two good games like that in a row, and he really was the barometer for them in that first quarter.
We also saw, Sauce, the longer quarters, and Adelaide in that fourth quarter, they just had to try and defend that lead. So I think Sydney will bring the heat early as well as Adelaide. but 20.5 is big. I'd like it to be about 16.5 or that 9.5 that I saw. But
I'd like it to be about 4.5.
I'm gonna take the 20.5 and go from there.
I might take the 20.5 and hope that the Swans can get it done. Playing for their home crowd, Lance Franklin return, first time in a couple of years. They'll get up for the big occasion, the kids.
There we go. And the next game of the rank on the Saturday.
Yep, we head over to Adelaide Oval, the 4:35. The AFL has continued to serve up back-to-back footy, and we love it here at Behind the Bounce. So Port Adelaide taking on the really disappointing Essendon. Can they bounce back from choking a 39-point lead? Port, the bookies don't think so. Port are the favourites at 32.5.
Biggest line again. So 2 weeks in a row. Is it just is it going to be over 32.5 Pez? I think that's the main question. Yeah, it'll be 40 plus here. I'd say Fantasia playing against his old side. Port Adelaide nearing full strength. So you've got Rosie on the sidelines at the moment.
I can't believe he's a potential to come back after having a surgery.
Yeah, I don't know what's going on there. But Essendon didn't rate them. We both tipped them in the bottom 4 pre-season Sauce, and that was their one chance, get a really good win under their belt against the poor Hawthorn side, and they just blew it. And you're going across to play Port Adelaide, who love to win the minor premiership. We've spoken about it so many times. They've flogged North Melbourne in 3/4 of footy. They'll do the same to Essendon over there. I don't think Essendon supporters believe they've got a chance in this either. So Port Adelaide minus 32.5, I'll take that easy.
Yeah, I think one thing I noticed being at the Essendon game is that when they had a lot of opportunities to sort of put the game to rest really early and making easy shots, but they turn the ball over so much through the middle. And the one thing that Port Adelaide do, and we saw this last year, if you turn the ball over against Port Adelaide, you will get scored on. And if you don't get scored on and they miss, they get the point, they lock it into that defence. They're fast. They bring an intensity that, as you said, a regular season intensity that you normally see during finals. And I think they've just got too much of an arsenal up forward, as well as quality midfielders in there to keep this game close. Port Adelaide, 32.5. That'll be done by half time.
Yeah, they love that forward 50 stoppage or even forward half stoppages, Port Adelaide. They've got so many players that just deliver the ball so well inside that forward 50, and Charlie Dixon doesn't even have to, be in many contests. They've got so many different targets they can go up there. The young man, Toddy Marshall, a show favourite, he's looking good in round 1 against North, and I think he can get a couple more marks inside 50 and kick some goals this year.
You'd love to see him get a snag, Pez. It would have been really good for us last year if he didn't get injured and had 3 or 4 opportunities. I think we had him as part of our cheeky, but a big game for I guess Essendon to really show if they can be competitive and they can make 2021 a season to remember, or like we predicted, end in that bottom 4, because they made Hawthorn look a lot better than they were. And we're not talking about Hawthorn here. We're talking about how poor Essendon were in that game and how much they lost that game. Let's get into the next game of the round, Pez. A Saturday night absolute blockbuster. I'm guessing you're going at Marvel Stadium, Pez. Would I be right?
Yeah, got the tickets. Very excited to go to my first game of 2021.
And first game of 2020 as well. It's like 2 years in coming, mate.
2 years in the waiting zone.
All right, we get into obviously your Saints, Pez, taking on the Melbourne Demons. This line here is almost a pick 'em. It's a minus 7.5. It's a really interesting line. Melbourne were a little bit disappointing in an impressive win, and that's sort of an oxymoron there because it was touted as a 30-point win almost, but their skill level was very down. And St Kilda, I don't like using the word gutsy, but it was a really gutsy win against the GWS Giants.
Yeah, it's always gutsy in the weather that they played in last week, and to come away with a win with only 6 out of their best 22 Sauce, not 8 as it was reported. But Melbourne, James Harms broke his wrist during the week, and the scans revealed that, and Jack Viney is probably going to come back into the team. Will Malcolm and Hibbard come in and try and strengthen that as well. St Kilda are looking to get 2 players back, Max King from that concussion and Zach Jones in the midfield there, back from that hamstring.
I think the thing that I realised most against Melbourne versus Fremantle was how poor the skill level was for both those teams. And during your gutsy win, as we said, with the weather, your skill level was pretty good in the wet. I can imagine if you have a dry ground that you'll be able to get this job done pretty easy there.
Under the roof.
Under the roof. You like that one, Pez. I think that you play that ground really well. I really like what St Kilda are doing there. I can't wait till we get Brad Crouch back in there. Jack Higgins was very impressive, and he will help fill some holes up forward. I just don't believe in Melbourne. I think their skill level is subpar, to be honest. And I think that the Saints get this done probably 7.5 a decent sort of line, I think.
Yeah, double that for mine, 14.5 plus. I like the Saints here to win by at least 3 goals or more. Melbourne's strength will be in the ruck with Max Gawn against young Hunter if he's able to keep his spot with, I think now 4 players outside of our best 22, but it includes our best ruckman, which is Rowan Marshall and Paddy Ryder still on leave. But St Kilda minus 7.5 under the roof at Marvel. Love that line against the Demons.
Yeah, it's a decent sort of line, that one. A little bit. I don't think it's a decent one. I think it's very low, and I think the bookies are being very kind to Melbourne's performance. Get on to the other Saturday night game. Absolute classic, this one. It'll be the Gold Coast Suns, North Melbourne Kangaroos up at Metricon Stadium. The line is minus 20.5 after Gold Coast. Very impressive fight out. But we're not going to label that, Pez, because it's a very disappointing loss, because this is where the Gold Coast Suns need to win. And for me, I'm just not going to even talk to it, because we've spoken about enough about the Gold Coast Suns. They get the job done here because they need to get it done. They need to get it done big against North Melbourne.
They need to consolidate it here. They've got a great opportunity, to go 1-on-1. And Gold Coast, credit to them for having a line out at minus 20.5. You wouldn't have thought that a few seasons ago, but no Matty Rowell, as we know, but they've got so much talent across the ground. Their skill level looked elite over the first 3 quarters. It was absolutely fantastic, and I love their forward line with Max King, ranking yet to kick a goal this year, so I think he can pop up for a couple. Hopefully the weather holds off and they can play a drier game so we can see the skills of these players. Impressed with their defence as well. So North struggling, they're just playing, to try and get some players with 30 disposals like Jaden Stevenson, and they've just got to put in effort for their fans. Their fans aren't expecting them to win. And their fans aren't expecting them to probably get within 30 points, I'd imagine. So Gold Coast, easy for me.
Yeah, so North Melbourne will be probably missing some of their young guns, Curtis Taylor and Aidan Core, who didn't finish out the game in round 1. And I'm doubtful that Luke McDonald will probably make it back. But we probably will see Ben Cunnington after his concussion. He should be right to be playing. So that'll give some more experience into that midfield. My favourite man, Pez, Davis Ukanaki. Am I getting better at it?
I'm not going to say it on the pod until you get it right. So I need you to watch the North game.
I do watch the North game.
And I need you to listen to the commentators and see if they can say it correctly.
But he had 12 touches in the first quarter. So if he can get some of that ball movement with Cunnington in there and get them going, they might put up a fight, but Gold Coast can't allow that. The Gold Coast Suns need to get this done to build a great campaign for 2021 and make a truth of your prediction, Pez, and make those finals. All right, let's get on to the Sunday night matches. Absolute cracker. This one will be Hawthorn versus Richmond, the 1:10 time slot, an unusual time slot at the G on a Sunday afternoon. The line is really big in this one. Richmond minus 28.5, despite Hawthorn's very, very gutsy come from behind win.
Yeah, they come from behind win, but if Hawthorn were down by 40 points against Essendon, what are Richmond going to do to them? But I'm still nervous about this line because it's really, really big. And I was going, maybe I'll go Hawthorn plus 28.5. Richmond will just teeter along, try and get the job done. But I just have to go Richmond in here, even if it's minus 28.5, win by 5 goals plus. I don't think Hawthorn have the cattle this year. Tom Mitchell, yes, he was impressive last week. They got some players to kick some goals and come back from 40 down, but they were playing against Essendon, who I don't rate very highly this season. So I think Richmond can, run forward. They're going to have players that are competing for spots. They know they've got a chance to play in a premiership this year. 1:10 during the day. Hopefully nice weather, hopefully nice and sunny, and Richmond just run it forward, and Hawthorn, kick it back, and Noah Bolter down there in defence, he's just going to hold up, and looking forward to seeing some of those small forwards kick a couple of goals.
Yeah, I think what you spoke about the first part is that if Essendon can do that to Hawthorn in a half of football, what could a good football club do to them in a full game of football? Last week, Richmond had 75 inside 50s and just made an absolute mess of Carlton in that last term, just through some inaccuracy. I think they address that. I think they get this well over 28.5. Hawthorn aren't that impressive. Tom Mitchell, he looked actually pretty decent in that come from behind win. Still getting, I think he had like 26 handballs or something like that. Ended up with 30 something. That's what he's going to do. But the pressure that Richmond applied on Thursday night is something that I probably didn't talk up enough during the preseason. I said they were going to slow down. They're showing no signs of slowing down, and this is going to be a huge win for their 2021 season.
Yeah, it can be very scary, a Richmond side in full flight and full effort.
Yeah, we head over to Marvel Stadium for the next one. Battle of the West. The Western Bulldogs, one of the flag favourites after not an impressive win against Collingwood, but hey, a win a lot better than the year before when they played Collingwood, versus the West Coast Eagles in their win. They were a little bit disappointing against the Gold Coast Suns. The line in this one is the Doggies' favourite at minus 11.5. An interesting line one for me, Pez.
Yeah, I never would have picked that, but Western Bulldogs, are they going to pick Jamara Ugle-Hagen? I don't think they will.
No, I don't think they will. They give him another week.
Give him another week. Is Easton Wood returning from hamstring injury as well?
I think he's coming back.
So they strengthen themselves a little bit, and West Coast, we'll see how they go in with it. What I was impressed with last week was Tim Kelly running through that midfield over in Western Australia. West Coast are known to struggle when travelling. They won the premiership in 2018 where they won a few games at the G and things like that. I can't remember the last time they played at Marvel Stadium, but it's quite smaller than the MCG and Optus Stadium. But West Coast forwards, I think they're just going to dominate the Western Bulldogs' defence. And if I get 11.5 for West Coast, I'm going to take that because West Coast can match them in the forward line. Their defence with Barras and McGovern and those intercept marks, I think they can do the job on the Bulldogs forwards because the Bulldogs, they need their midfielders to be running that ball inside 50 and having shots at goal because Josh Bruce isn't going to offer you anything up there. You don't have anyone that can take a grab overhead, and we saw that as a weakness last week when the Bulldogs dominated the midfield. They got the ball in high to the defensive 50, and you know what West Coast love? They love that ball coming in high because they've got Jeremy McGovern to intercept that ball and then run the other way. Tim Kelly in the middle, Nick Nat Nui to dominate Stephen Martin and Tim English, and that forward line with Jack Darling, as I've mentioned, I think he's going to be their best forward this year and kick their most goals. So West Coast with 11.5 start, I'll take them.
That's really interesting, Pez, because I look at the two teams and the things that West Coast really lacked last week and the things that they got beaten on was that pace through the middle and that, being able to have that run through the middle. Gold Coast probably should have won that game if they were a little bit more experienced. They might have. I think that the Western Bulldogs midfield is going to get plenty of it. They're going to run. They're going to control the pill. I think West Coast really, we're undershadowing how much they miss Luke Shuey and Elliot Yeo through that run. It relies heavily on some of the older bodies there at West Coast to do it. They don't like playing that running game, even though when they've got those players in it, they look impressive going there. I do agree that I don't know where all the goals are going to come from for the Doggies, but I think they're going to have so much of the pill that they're just going to start to address those, and they're going to get a little bit lucky. I think that the Doggies can get it done, and I've got the West Coast Eagles falling out of my 8 this year, so I have to back myself. I've got the Western Bulldogs minus 11.5. Pez, put that one in for money for VBs.
That's one of my matches of the round to watch because I'm so interested to see who's right on this one. You could go either way, but the 11.5 line for Bulldogs to be minus against that West Coast side, it's very strange for me. I know it's at Marvel and things like that, but watching with high interest in that one.
Yeah, it'll be very interesting after this game, the chatter around one of these clubs, because if the Doggies go 0-2 and beating two, finalists from last year, and West Coast struggled against Gold Coast, and then they lose to the Doggies by that line, there'll be some concerns, and I think that it's a really a danger game for both clubs for different reasons.
Yeah, I think West Coast can bring the effort. I don't know if they can actually because their travel, that's what they struggle with. So
they made that excuse last year lots.
That's the thing that they need to overcome. They need to overcome that travel and just say, you know what, we're here today, we play footy, and then we're flying back home. We just need to get this job done if we want to compete. We've got a list that can do it. People like Sauce have predicted them to drop down. Are they just going to let that happen?
Yeah, really interesting, that one. I can't wait to see it on that Sunday afternoon when I'm snuggled up on the couch, feeling a little bit worse for wear from the Saturday night activities. But let's get over to our favourite venue of them all, Pez, SBS Stadium. This will be a really, really cracker of a game. Fremantle, their skill levels were really disappointing last week against Melbourne. They've got a lot of injuries and they've been hit with the injury bug a little bit more. GWS Giants probably should have got the job done against those Saints of yours, Pez, in that last quarter, had some opportunities to put the game away. How will they respond? Can they take it to Fremantle at minus 1.5? Really surprised that Freo are starting favourites here. Yeah,
it's just with Freo's injury list. If this was a full strength Fremantle,
different story.
I'd definitely say it's a different story. But GWS, they're going to be dirty off that week. They're going to be sore from the game before, but they've just got so much talent. You always talk about it, but GWS, Harry Himmelberg actually looked really good in front of goal, except for that one that he missed that he could have sealed it for the Giants last week. But their midfield can win the ball. Callum Ward He's still going. You can't tackle that bloke. Nathan Fyfe we saw against the Melbourne side who was pretty depleted. Couldn't do it by himself. Yes, he took some good grabs in the forward half of the ground, got the ball up forward, but they've only got Taberner up there at the moment. They don't have that second person to come in and really help out. So Walters, I don't think he'll make it back. I don't think they strengthen their forward line much, Fremantle, and they are going back home, but I'm going to back the Giants to travel. I think this is what they might need, to travel over together, the young side, and sort something out and go, you know what, last week was not acceptable. If we're actually seen as a finals team, I know they did this a lot last year, but I'm hoping they can turn that around just for this game. Plus 1.5. I have to take the Giants here.
Yeah, I think that's the smart play here. Fremantle, as you said, the injuries. You also had Alex Pearce and Joel Hamley who were not going to make it for round 2. Really disappointing for Alex Pearce. He's
devastating.
Was 7 years in the system, and he's played like 60 games. The poor bloke, and
there was a gap of 600 and something.
Yeah,
games
that's incredible. And the thing that I like about the Giants is there's a big possibility our man Brent Daniels could make it back. So that's a guaranteed win, surely, isn't it?
What are you talking about, Sauce? Come on, mate.
No, sorry, it was a little bit of a private joke there. I think that that superstar talent, we here at the pod, Pez, we continually back that talent.
Oh, no.
Need to see it. I think that for me, I think if they can't get this job done against a depleted Fremantle in an away trip when they're meant to bond together and they're meant to start playing for each other, then for me, I'm not going to go for the goal for GWS for the rest of the season, and I'm going to throw my ladder out because I've got them finishing in the 8, and I think that this is a win that they need to do to come back home confident, have one under the belt, and this is a danger game for most clubs. Fremantle, if you can get them early in the season with not a full strength side, you got to take that opportunity. Giants for me in a surprisingly close one.
Yeah, well, the big name, Toby Green. I think they've also got Flynn in their ruck who impressed last week, but this is the talent we're talking about. Hopper, Taranto, Kelly, Ward, Canilio.
We say it every week, and that's not even like all of them, Pez. You look at that, some people at back, like you've got Keefe, Haynes, Perryman, Phil Davis is making his return as well.
Nick Haynes is one of my favourite players to watch, but I hated him last week against St Kilda. He was everywhere, marking the ball.
What has happened to him from last year's form to the year before, when in that premiership year, he was running the ball, he was kicking efficiently. Now all he seems to do is intercept mark. They're not having that run through him, and he's making good decisions, but he was known for starting that quarterback sort of role, and I'd like to see him get back to that, because when they are up and about and he's streaming off that half-back line, they're at their best and they're hard to stop. They
are. They got to find that bit of heart and a bit of fight about him, a bit of see you next Tuesday about him. So,
I like that.
You like that? That's what they need. And I don't know if they need a coaching change or they need something. They just need that little firecracker to get them started. And I still don't think they'll make the finals this year, but I think they can defeat this depleted Fremantle side. And that rounds out round 2. I'm looking so forward to it, Sauce, by seeing every single game this weekend.
Yeah, before we move on from that, Pez, one thing that I did notice, and make sure you jump on to our good sponsors, Amazon Prime, and see the documentary of the AFL that they've put on there. One thing I did notice that really sort of brought some alarm bells for me is, I know we talk about Leon Cameron and whether they need a new coach. Some of the stuff he was saying in some of those games and the way he was calling out players and the way that he was back, really getting into them. I actually said to my old man when I was watching it, I said, if you can't get yourself up for what he was saying and what he was throwing into that press conference or into those rooms, then there's a big issue. And that seems to be, if he's still leaving that same sort of message every week, maybe it is time for a change, because they gave a real insight to how brutal and how harsh he was, and they kept putting this emotional sort of baggage along with it, and they made everyone accountable. And you go and watch it, and you have that sort of reflection about, are they playing for him? And if you can't get yourself up for some of those things, well, then this needs to make a change, and they're not going to get rid of 10 superstars.
Oh, you're definitely not, but they have got rid of a lot of superstars over the last few years.
They haven't got rid of, they've lost.
they've lost them, definitely. So round 2 looks like a big one. So many tough games. I think there's 5 ones that could, you could pick either way. So best of luck to all the tipsters out there. Good luck with your lines. Try and pick your lines. See if you can send them across that behind the bounce. See if you can compete with easy to compete with Sauce. Bit harder to compete with me. But
we've only got 2 different this week, Pez. So you're in trouble then.
2 different. You might be able to take the lead, because I lead 5-4 so far from the first round. But Anyway, that's it. That's round 2. I'll look forward to the recap show and we'll go from there. I've been Pez. Peace out.
I'm still Sauce. We'll catch up next time, guys.